give me a couple of minutes, sir. Before that, let me introduce you.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Thank you.
A very good evening to the respected guest and all our dear students, and a hearty welcome to everyone from Bhavan's Institute of Management Science, Kolkata. Well, we are all in unlock phase, which is highly indicative of a systematic movement, though at a controlled pace. Hurdles are to overcome at any and every stages of life. And for this, willpower is the strongest weapon, which I believe that will help you to face the challenge and overcome it. The pandemic crisis prevailing around has created a new challenging environment for all of us, especially for the aspiring young minds, and their minds are filled with skeptical thoughts as to what would be the professional expectations from industry or academia or other professional fields from the budding aspirants. And it was quite for a long time that I was trying to organize a session on grooming for our MBA students. And that is why the topic of the day is hone your employability skills in a way that agrees with industry expectations. And the esteemed speaker of the session is Dr. S.K. Gupta. Dr. S.K. Gupta is a postgraduate in commerce and a gold medalist, fellow member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, fellow member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, PhD in corporate governance, with over 40 years of corporate experience in leadership positions with various public and private sector organizations in the domains of finance, costing, internal audit, legal, and company secretarial functions. He has dealt with mergers and acquisitions, corporate restructuring, anti-dumping duty, and corporate governance mechanisms. He is currently Chief Executive Officer of Insolvency Professional Agency of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, which is a frontline regulator registered with the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. Dr. Gupta has chaired and addressed a large number of national and international seminars and conferences. He is a prolific writer. He has written over 150 articles and research papers in the domains of finance, management, accounting, strategic cost management, valuation, corporate reporting, corporate governance, sustainability, integrated reporting, corporate restructuring, and corporate laws, which are equally published in various professional journals. He is currently guiding 5 PhD scholars and has also conducted management development programs, both open programs and in-house for various companies. On a personal note, Dr. Gupta is a well-known flute player. He has released an album of songs and bhajans played by him on flute. So we all are eagerly waiting. Our students are eagerly waiting for to listen to you, sir. Before I hand over the stage, may I request Abhishek, the student from MBA second year, to kindly play the national anthem. And for this, I would request every one of us to kindly stand during the playing of the national anthem.
Yes, ma'am.
Abhishek, the sound needs to be there.
Sorry, ma'am.
Sound is not there.
One- Ma'am, give me 1 second.
Abhishek, is it over? Abhishek, are we done with it?
Ma'am, 1 second. There is some technical issue, I think.
Today, everybody's a technical issue only.
I know.
No, right from the morning only, sir. Even I'm facing certain
Okay,
problems
okay.
there.
Because I've used Microsoft Teams before. It's not that I'm using it for the first time, but somehow I was not able to figure out.
Obviously, sir, it can happen because after all, this is technology.
I know, I
And
know.
Abhishek, we are like almost over 1 second, more than a
That's okay. No
second.
issue. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Please carry on. Please carry on, Abhishek.
Yes, sir. I'm just trying.
Abhishek, in that case, we will begin with the session, and by the at the end, we be ready with your national anthem. That will be better.
Yeah, I think we can do that. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the
okay, ma'am.
stage is over to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening and welcome to this session on industry expectations and how to work out your personality and how to prepare your attitude, your skills so as to be in line with the industry expectation. I'm thankful to Professor Swati Basu for having invited me and given me an opportunity of interacting with you on this very important theme, how to own your employability skills as per industry expectations. You know, the world is changing and is changing very, very fast. The pace of change is devastating in a way, all because we live in a world which is kind of a VUCA world, which is highly uncertain, highly vulnerable, highly complex, and highly ambiguous. In this VUCA world, the life is changing so very fast that it's basically like shifting sands on the seashore. Let's first look at some of the dimensions of the changes taking place all around us so as to understand the macro perspective or the macro environment within which the industry works. And then as the next part of my session, I'll talk about within the given VUCA situation and within the given dynamics of the business environment, how industries are working, what kind of expectations do they have from the fresh management graduates and other graduates. And then I'll come down to the point how you should be able to prepare yourself to meet the industry expectations. And then towards the end, I would also be pleased to answer at least a few questions that you people might have in your own minds. That's going to be the basic flow of my presentation. So the first dimension of the changing times that we are living in today is that we are looking at and we are being faced with very, very disruptive business models, which have drastically, significantly changed the entire rules of the game. To give you a few examples, today we live in a world where the world's largest travel car company does not own a single car. You know the answer, Uber. We live in a world where the world's largest travel lodging company does not own a single hotel room of their own. That's Airbnb. We live in a world where the world's largest retailer does not own a single brick and mortar store. Amazon. These are very, very disruptive business models which were unheard of till about a few years back. But these are the pillars of the modern business, and these are creating very, very disruptive business models in the marketplace. And when you look at the functioning of these companies, most of these companies, I'm not saying all, but most of these companies have situations where there is profitless turnover. They have a great top line, they have a great, good enough turnover, but end of the day, there is no profit. Or some of these businesses have cashless profit. They have a good enough bottom line, but end of the day, there is no cash or there's no liquidity. But when you look at the valuation of these companies, wow, skyrocketing. There is a huge beeline of investors who are wanting to put their money into these kind of businesses because these are the businesses of the future. These are the businesses of the 21st century. They have a beeline for putting their money into these ventures. So we are looking at very, very disruptive business models, which are very different from the traditional hierarchical structure of businesses that we used to have and that we study as part of our textbooks. Technology obviously has significantly transformed the way we live and work today. Development of internet, development of mobile phones, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, data analytics, all these have significantly altered the way we are today living our simple life at the personal level, at the family level, the social dimension, as well as the way we do the business in the world today. And these things are not very old. If I may ask some of you a question, when did internet come to India? Well, it was around the period 1993-94, just about 25 years back. But then if I may ask you a second question, when did the world as a whole, even the most advanced of the countries in the Western world, when did they come across internet? This was also around early 1970s, just about 50 years. I mean, not a long time that we have had internet. But it has now become, for you all millennials, it has now become a part and parcel of your entire life. You know how things have changed over the period of last 5 decades or so. There are demographic shifts taking place all across the world, be it India, be it the US, be it the UK, be it Africa, be it Southeast Asia. Everywhere there are changes taking place in the demographic profile of the territories, which are reshaping society, which are reshaping norms, value system, ethics of society, and also the workforce. Because end of the day, where does the workforce come from? Workforce comes from society. Once the structure and demographics of the society undergoes a change, obviously the behavior, attitude of the workforce also changes. There is globalization wave which is happening across the world. India proceeded onto the path of LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization with the Big Bang from the year 1990-91. Ever since then, all across the world, there are huge impacts which have been seen because of the impact of globalization, where each country today, each economy is so closely intertwined with rest of the countries and rest of the economies that it is unmanageable and it is kind of unthinkable to think of any economy which is kind of a standalone. You are always connected with various other economies and countries of the world. Customer expectations have changed dramatically. They are expecting everything faster, better, more differentiated, and personalized than before. You know, in the marketing, we have the concept of customer satisfaction, but I think that's fast giving place to the new concept of customer delight. Customer satisfaction is where you are able to deliver the expected value parameter or expected value paradigm to a customer, whereas customer delight goes one step forward where you deliver higher than expected value paradigm to a customer. That's where the customer delight happens. Climate change, of course, all around the world is having a huge environmental impact, along with corporate social responsibility, which is now becoming the focus point of all progressive, sustainable corporate organizations. And the result of all this is that today, when we look at any corporate enterprise, we don't only look at profit. Profit is, of course, important because unless you are able to make money on the amount of capital that you have invested, you can't really expect to survive on a long-term basis. But along with profit, we are now looking at two other P's, planet as well as people. Therefore, the world is fast moving towards looking at triple P, profit, planet, people. Each one of these dimensions of the business are given equal importance with a view to finding out whether a business is creating value for the entire environment within which it is sustaining or not. It is not just profit that is end of the concern or end of the model for any business concern these days. This provides a broad perspective of the macro situation within which, or the premise the background within which a business is operating today the world over. From this now we can cull out and we can probably talk about what are the realities of 21st century business. Companies today are focusing more on providing customer delight. Just to give you a small real life example, what I mean by customer delight. You know, Deepavali is round the corner, and actually wish you very happy Deepavali to all of you in advance. Deepavali is just round the corner, and there's a lot of gifting is happening in the marketplace. People are giving gifts to their relatives, to their friends, to the corporate clients and businesses and things like that. Yesterday, I went to a jewelry shop to pick up a small article of silver for giving as a corporate gift to one of our business associates. I picked up a small item, I paid for that, and I was just about to walk out of that showroom or the jewelry shop. As soon as I turned my back and I had almost reached the door, the shop owner yelled and called me back. He said, "Sir, just a minute, sir." I said, "Baba, what happened? I picked up what I wanted to buy. I've already paid for that. What is that more that you're wanting from me?" And then he was standing there with a small gift wrapped box. He handed it over to me and he said, "Sir, happy Deepavali." I never bargained for this. I never expected to get something more. I had paid for whatever I purchased from that particular shop, but this was kind of a surprise for me. As soon as I came back to my car, the first thing that I did was, out of curiosity, I pulled open the wrapper, pulled out the item which was there inside. It was nothing to tell you, just a glass bowl, probably costing maybe 100 rupees, maybe 125 rupees, maybe 150 rupees. But the way it was given, I think he made me his customer for lifelong. That's the customer delight that we talk about today in the businesses. So the companies are focusing on providing the customer delight, going beyond the spectrum of customer satisfaction, which has been the focus point of customer involvement and customer engagement for quite a few years in the past. Companies today have flatter hierarchical levels. You don't have very many levels in the company. You just have an assistant manager, then you have a manager, then you have a deputy general manager, then you have, maybe a president, and then you have a CEO. That's it. Just about probably 4 or 5 levels, and then you progress from one level to another level, depending upon your contribution to the organization, not on the basis of how many years you have already spent in a particular level. The time-bound promotion concept is no longer existing in the corporate world, at least not in the private sector. Once you move into the corporate sector, you will realize it's only your skills, it's only your real life contribution to the business that's going to push you up the hierarchy. And it's not simply the time that you spend in the company that's probably not going to come handy in pushing you up the hierarchical level. Employees today are given more autonomy and freedom to choose how they want to carry out and how they want to execute the particular task or assignment. You have a choice. You want to do it, work from home. There is a flexi time option available. What kind of methodology, what kind of techniques you're going to apply, it's all up to you. But end of the day, you are nonetheless responsible for successful execution of the task. Autonomy, yes, but not without responsibility. You remain responsible for completion of the task in the most effective manner, that being the crux of the issue. As an executive, as a manager, you're free to choose your own tools, you're free to choose your own mechanics, and you're free to choose how you're going to work out a problem, but then end of the day, you're responsible for delivering results. Work today is much more collaborative. Time of working individually on a standalone basis is over. Today, when you work in companies, most of the tasks, most of the assignments require you to work in groups. You have to work with teams. Therefore, it is very, very important for you to be a team player rather than an individually brilliant executive. That may not catch much of our eyes today. What is required from you is you must have the ability to be able to work in teams. How do you do that? I have a lot more to share with you in the subsequent part of my presentation. Jobs today have become less routine, they are less predictable, and they are less stable. You can't really expect to join a particular company, stay there, retire there from the same company after about 40 years, 35 years. No, that probably used to be the thing, but that's the thing of the past now. Today, the jobs have become less routine. There's more churning happening in the workplace. Jobs are less predictable. And at the same time, the jobs are less stable. You don't really know when there might be some impact of globalization happening on the corporate sector, and then probably you might be asked to leave the organization for no fault of yours. Not that you're not working efficiently, not that you're not working smartly, but probably things have gone from bad to worse for the business, and therefore that might probably be the trigger that the employer might ask you to leave the organization. You got to be prepared for that all the time in today's dynamic business world. There is enough and adequate job security in the marketplace, but that's not based upon the time that you have spent in the company. That's not based upon the level that you have occupied or occupying in the company. It's all dependent upon your skills. Skills lead to action. Action leads to results. Results lead to value. How much of the value are you contributing to the company is the touch point for deciding whether and how long you want to stay in that particular company, how you will grow in that company, how fast you will get promotions, how good increments you will get in the company. It's all dependent upon your skills, your actions, your results, and the amount of value that you are able to create in the organization while working as an employee. So the 21st century skill box or the 21st century skills repertoire, if we talk about, you've got to have skills in terms of communication and collaboration. You should be able to communicate effectively at all levels. It's not only one-way communication. You got to interact with people. You got to interact with subordinates, with your boss, with your peers, with your customers, with society, with groups, with government, whole lot of people, whole lot of stakeholders who are connected with your business. You got to be communicating with them and communicating in diverse modes. Spoken communication, written communication, communication by email, communication through Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, communication through a lot of other technological devices that you might be using at a given point of time. Communication, therefore, remains and becomes one of the most critical 21st century skill which is required or expected by the industry. You got to have an element of creativity or out-of-box thinking, which is also very, very important in today's world. Someone who has a brilliant academic record, someone who has excelled in academics, obviously will get an interview call from any company that he or she applies for. But would he or she land in a job or land up a job, get a job? I think that still would remain a question mark in today's modern business world. To give you a real life example, in a company where I was working as a chief executive officer, I happened to be taking interview for the position of a manager in a particular department. There were 3 of us in the interview board, and they were the candidate before us who had a brilliant academic record. I think he was a merit position holder. We asked him 10 questions. Believe me, he answered 8 questions point blank. Immediately he responded to the question in a very, very effective and good manner. One question, he just fumbled a bit. He was not too sure whether what he was saying was right or wrong. So he just fumbled a bit. And one question he was not able to answer, but he was very straightforward in that context. And he said, sorry, sir, I don't really know answer to this question. But still, 8 out of 10 was brilliant. And he had the backing of an excellent academic record that he was carrying. He was a merit holder, probably a gold medalist or a second position in the university. He left the interview board, and there was the peon standing at the door of the room where we were conducting the interview. He asked us, "Sir, should we call the next candidate?" We told him, "Please hold on for 2 minutes. We want to first carry out an assessment of the candidate who has just gone out, and we will let you know when to call the next candidate very soon." This candidate, when he went out of the interview room, was very, very happy, very optimistic about his performance, that he has done exceedingly well in the interview. He told his friends, he told his family, and he was also very confident himself that he has probably landed a job. He was almost sure that he's going to get selected in this particular company. On the other hand, what happened inside the interview board? Three of us, being on the part of the interview board, we were sitting on chairs with revolving wheels, with wheels at the bottom. As soon as the candidate went out of the room, each one of us, we turned towards each other, and then one of us spoke. We could not recognize the spark in the candidate. He did not seem to have fire in the belly. And we all somehow tended to agree with that common statement made by one of the members of the interview board. And I think you got it right now. That was probably the end of the story so far as this particular candidate was concerned. He was not selected in our company. Because what we were looking for is not only academic brilliance, is not only your straightforward textbook answers. We were looking for somebody who would be creative, who would be having a fire in the belly, who would probably be having an out-of-box thinking skill. That was the kind of criteria that we were looking for. And that's what most of the industry people look for today. And it's not a straightforward academic brilliance that's given very high weightage in the interview boards and the corporate world. So we got to be sure that we possess critical thinking and problem-solving approach. If I may put a small riddle to all of you, there are 20 oranges in a basket and there are 20 persons. Each person is asked to pick up an orange from the basket. Each person did pick up an orange, but still one orange was left in the basket. How was that possible? There were 20 oranges in the basket and 20 persons. Each person picked up one orange, but still one orange was left in the basket. How was that possible? Well, the answer is the last person, when he went to pick up an orange, he found that there was only one orange in the basket. He picked up the orange with the basket. So each one of the persons did pick up an orange, but the last one carried the basket also along with him. So the orange was still in the basket. Well, this is something creative. In order to think a solution for a particular riddle or for a particular problem, you got to assume certain things. You got to have a clarity of mind. You got to have a critical thinking skill, and you must have problem-solving attitude. Today's corporate world expects youngsters and probably all managers at whatever level they are working, you got to have initiative. You can't simply be doing best of your job, whatever job is allocated to you. You have to create a place for yourself in the organization. It's a very common real life fact in the corporate sector today that if you take a leave for 2 weeks, when you join the company back after 2 weeks leave, many cases real life where the person has been asked to leave the job because the work of that particular position was allocated to someone else and the job was being carried out very, very efficiently. Company did not miss the particular person for a period of 2 weeks. So after that, if he joins, they will find probably no use for that particular person because the work was being carried out even without him. This is real life, which is happening in the corporate world. People are losing jobs immediately after joining back from a reasonably long leave. You got to have initiative. You got to take different tasks. You have to show your initiative and ask the manager to give you different jobs and tasks so that you can create value for yourself and you can create a valuable position for yourself so that the organization really benefits from your contribution to the ultimate function. You got to be self-sufficient. You have to have all the tools and techniques which are required to carry out a particular task. You must be well versed with them. Be it information technology or IT skills, be it behavioral skills, be it communicational skills, be it the task of business development, be it the task of communicating with the people. You got to have all this within yourself. You got to be a self-sufficient, one single standalone personality, which the company hires and gets the result through you because you are so thorough, you are having skills which are all round and you are able to handle the task all by yourself pertaining to different dimensions of the work. Of course, ethics and values are very, very important. Moral values, ethical values, your value system has to be very, very strong. There ought not to be any compromise whatsoever with regard to your ethical values and value standards. Most of the companies, when you join, will first day itself will give you a booklet or maybe a two-page note, which will be kind of a code of conduct or a code of ethics of the company. And the HR manager will probably tell you, please go through this code of conduct very, very carefully. You will probably go through that. You will probably not go through that because end of the day, you're not going to face any kind of a test with regard to that code of conduct. It's just a practice of the HR department to give to every new employee right on the first day a copy of the code of conduct of the company. But is that enough? No. To give you a real life example, I'm on the board of certain companies as independent director. In one of the company where I'm an independent director, this company was celebrating its Founders Day and they had organized a small get together calling all about 500 employees of the company as well as all the directors of the company. As it normally happens in these kind of formal programs, you are asked to say something, say a few words for about 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever. I was also requested to say a few words in this gathering on the Founders Day. I decided to talk about code of conduct and values. Not telling you entire context or entire wording of my 5-minute speech in that particular function. In one of the aspects, I just put 4 questions before the crowd, before the audience. First thing that I asked them was, do you know that your company has a code of ethics? Everyone said yes. All of them raised their hands. Everyone said yes because they had seen the code of conduct on the notice board. They had seen the code of conduct of the company on the website. And moreover, this was a listed company. Therefore, as per regulations, guidelines of SEBI, as well as listing agreement with the stock exchanges, a code of ethics is mandated for all listed companies. They have to have a code of conduct. So this company also had a code of conduct and ethics. My next question was, have you read it? Some of the hands came down when I asked the second question, have you read it? My third question to the audience there was, have you understood it? Many hands came down this time. Very few hands were up there in the audience when I asked the third question, have you read it? And then my final question to the audience was, do you live by the code of conduct? Do you live by the code of ethics? Believe me, in that strong crowd of 500 people sitting there in the auditorium, very, very few hands were up in the audience when I asked them the fourth question, do you live by the code of ethics of the company? This is where, and this is what really matters. A company may have a code of conduct and ethics, but unless the people absorb the same thing, start practicing that in and out in their daily life, or make that as part of their DNA, it's not going to work. believe me, it's not going to work. And there, instead of only looking at corporate social responsibility, actually we should be talking about ISR, individual social responsibility. What is that each one of us can do for the society? What is that each one of us can practice day in and day out as part of our code of conduct and code of ethics? It's not that somebody has given me a booklet and that's the end of story. Actually, that should be the beginning of the story so far as the code of ethics and code of values is concerned. So we are going to talk about employability skills, and this is connected with PQ. You know what is IQ? Intelligence quotient. What is EQ? Emotional quotient. What is SQ? Social quotient or spiritual quotient. What is PQ? Potential quotient. Potential quotient refers to your ability to reach a particular level in an organization. You may be able to reach that level or not. That depends upon lot many factors, both internal as well as external. But you must at least exhibit some kind of your potential. Do you have the potential to become the CEO of the company? You may not have the potential now, but you must at least have some elements of that now. And then subsequently, you can build on those elements by experience, by upgrading your skills, by learning new things going forward. You can build on that. But you must have at the core some essential elements of the potential quotient. That's what is known as the employability skills. You are a graduate, you are a qualified person, but are you employable? These are two different statements. You are highly qualified, but are you employable? How many interviews have you given? I've given 5 interviews. I went up to third round in 3, went up to 2 rounds in 2, and was rejected in the first round itself in 1. Haven't got a job as yet. I got a good academic background, but somehow it's just not clicking. Employability is using your skills and abilities to be hired and then stay hired. I think getting a job is difficult, but maintaining that job going forward through consistently sustainable good results is probably more difficult. But someone who doesn't have a job, the first gate entry point for him is he just wants to get a job. But having got a job, whether you'll be able to sustain that job or not and progress fast in that organization or not, it depends upon what kind of value you are able to deliver within that organization. So for individual, employability depends on your knowledge, your skills, your attitude. I want to talk a lot about attitude because attitude is everything, which includes application of knowledge, application of skills, and the degree to which you will progress in your life, both personal as well as professional. I think everything depends and is decided by the kind of attitude that you possess and the kind of attitude that you show and express. Having knowledge, skills, and attitude. And second point, the way you use and deploy these assets. How well do you use your knowledge? How effectively you use your skills? How gainfully you use your attitude in the workplace? And third, are you able to showcase your knowledge? Are you able to showcase your skills and attitude to the employers? Do you have presentation ability? This presentation ability is not simply making a PowerPoint presentation I'm talking about here. If you are able to present your skills, knowledge, and attitude to the employer, only then he will come to know how capable a person you are. But how to show that? The way you dress, the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you deliver, the way you handle time, the way you handle pressure, the way you handle difficult tasks, the way you handle your subordinates, the way you handle your boss, many more things. But these are some of the elements by which you are able to present yourself to the employer. This is something like presenting yourself to the employer as kind of a personal brand. I'm going to talk about personal branding a little in the subsequent part of my presentation, but enough for this point that employability initially means how effectively you are able to deploy and use your knowledge, your skills, and your attitudes, and how you are going to present them to your employers where you are working. So employability skills are a set of attributes, a set of skills, the set of knowledge that you must possess to ensure that you have the capability of being an effective player in the workplace so that you are able to benefit yourself, you are able to provide value contribution to your employer and the company, and you're also able to contribute at the macro level to the wider economy. If you have this in you, I think you have the world under your feet. Research shows that important factors which are considered by industry while recruiting fresh graduates, team working, problem solving, these are top of the table expectations from the industry. Positive attitude is also very highly expected from each one of the youngster who is joining a company by the industry. Relevant work experience and knowledge is also very important. Degree subject, what kind of degrees you have, what kind of subjects you have studied, well, okay, but not very relevant. The percentage just about 41%. And your degree results don't really matter much, just about 28%. And the kind of institution that you have attended also doesn't really matter much, just about 8%. Foreign language capability, because we are living in a globalized world, is also important, relevant, but not much, just about 2%. Research has shown that top 5 position holders in any college or university don't somehow do so well in their life and career as the rest of the next 10 people who stood 5th to 10th in the merit. I don't know why, but that's what the research says. The top 5 position holders do not do so well in their life and career as the people who are in the next 5 positions. They do much better as compared to the top 5. So often, potential employees don't have these kind of skills which are expected by the industry. People lack in IT skills. People lack in dealing with numbers, data analytics. People lack in the skills concerning team working. Individually, they are brilliant, but they don't know how to work effectively in teams. Problem-solving skills is a big challenge. Anything straightforward, everyone will be able to handle that. But anytime there is a complex situation that an employee is faced with, how do you handle that? There's no solution provided in the textbooks for that. You got to apply your skills, your knowledge, your attribute, and somehow get out of that fix. Problem-solving skills, people somehow they lack in this area. Communication, hugely important, but many people unfortunately don't give due emphasis on improving their communication skills. And that's where they find problems dealing with the situation when they actually start working in the corporate sector. Self-management or self-governance. How well are you able to manage time for yourself? Many a time you find people cribbing, I don't have adequate time to do this job. But then as the quotation goes, the busiest person is one who has the most of the time available to him. A busiest person, but a smart person who manages his time smartly will find time to do anything and everything in his life. He will go to movies, he will go for a walk, he will also play games, he will do work, he will study, he will do everything because he is better managed on a self basis. Self-management. How you manage your time, how you manage your task, how you deliver your assignments, how you deal with people, how you deal with emotions and problems. Very critical skill, but often potential employees lack this skill. And then awareness about business and customers. This is, of course, company specific skill that once you join a company, you got to have a hang of what kind of a business the company is in, what is the culture of a particular organization, because each organization is going to have a diverse culture. You got to sink yourself into that culture. You got to assimilate that culture within yourself. And that's where most of the people, they fail miserably in delivering results because they don't soak themselves up in the culture. They're not aware what kind of a customer mix they are dealing with. They are somehow not able to read and meet the needs of the customers. They are not able to deliver the customers as per their expectations. End of the day, they are not able to deliver value and results to the organization. So in order to gain the winning edge in this corporate world, which is highly competitive, believe me, the world today is highly competitive. First is competition to get a job. Then once you join a company, there'll be huge competition for promotion, huge competition for good increments, and the competition will probably never end. You got to have some kind of a winning edge, and that is possible only when you strive for excellence. You don't need to improve 1000% in any area. You need to actually improve just a bit in many different areas. That's how you hone up your employability skills by becoming an all-round personality, a person who is kind of jack of all trades. Of course, you got to have a specialization in a particular domain, but then you should be able to handle multiple tasks at the same time. Improving just a bit in many different facets of your functioning, it's a lot easier, but that's going to create a winning edge. Don't bother about your failures. Failures are actually stepping stones of future success. If you want to succeed, you must fail at least in the beginning. Failures provide a great learning to you. In the Silicon Valley in the US, which is the nursery of the startups the world over, someone who has failed in 3 startups is considered as a great guy. People think that he has amassed huge experience of having failed in 3 startups and therefore he is a great guy. So failure is not taken as kind of a stigma, at least in the Silicon Valley in the US, but that's probably not the case everywhere else in the world, including India. In India, someone who has failed in 1 startup, someone who has failed in 2 startups, and if he wants to get back to the job, he finds it very, very difficult to get back to job because there is kind of a stigma. In every interview, he'll be faced with the question, why did you fail? And therefore you lack something, and therefore you're no longer employable in the corporate world. That's the difference between understanding the beauty and the power of failure and its impact on your future success in your professional career. So what kind of business behavior you are expected to have in the corporate world with a view to first landing a job, then staying in the job, then growing in the job, and then getting maximum satisfaction out of the work that you are carrying. For that, you have to have some kind of a attitudinal behavior, which is very, very positive, which is in sync with the overall organization culture, which is going to carry you very, very far, very, very fast in your professional career. So what is business behavior? The way you conduct yourself, especially towards others. Attitude refers to a set of emotions, beliefs, and behaviors towards a particular object, person, thing, or event. Of course, no two people have the same attitude because attitude is something which is not taught in the textbooks. It is actually the result of experience, your background, your upbringing, but nonetheless, Attitude has a very powerful influence on your overall behavior. Attitude is everything. Believe me, it impacts whatever you do. The attitude with which you work in an organization, your dynamism, your fire in the belly, the way you approach each task, the way you deal with people, it impacts everything that you do, and it impacts the ultimate results that you are able to achieve. Attitude is so critical that it can be linked with one single word. Your entire life revolves around your attitude. Your entire life depends upon the attitude. It makes an incredible difference in your life. It's a very, very influential aspect of your positive action. It can also, negatively speaking, cripple you very, very badly. It dictates whether you are living life by design or by default. Very interesting, if you add up all the numbers of the alphabet of the word attitude, it all adds up to 100. Very interesting to note. Attitude is everything. If you just add up the numbers of all the alphabets that you have, starting with A to 1 to Z to 26, if you add up all the words numbers, the total works out to 100. Attitude is everything. All the employability skills that we're going to talk about slightly later are all dependent upon, and they all can be learned, they all can be developed only by having the right kind of attitude, or something which I call the winning attitude. Each one of you is a winner. That has to be the self-prophecy. Each one of you have to believe that each one of you is a winner. Because winning is nothing but a way of life. Winning is not a sometime thing. It's not that sometimes you win, sometimes you fail. No, you always win. You ought to win always. You don't win once in a while. You don't do things right once in a while. You do them right all the time. The winners of today in the corporate world are people who are great sellers, who can sell their personalities. Personality, which is a complex mix of skills, your knowledge, the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you act, the way you behave, the way you sit down, the way you pick up a mobile phone, the way you eat your food. Small things, but the entire plethora of all these different dimensions is the ultimate packet that you deliver, the ultimate box that you deliver to your employer, and that's by way of your personality. I'm not saying you should not be doing well in your academics. That's very important to study properly and score good marks. But even a person with an average ability, maybe 4 out of 10, maybe 5 out of 10, but a burning desire with a fire in the belly, I think he is the ultimate winner. You don't need to have very high academic credentials, but you must have a very high fire in your belly. You must have dynamism. You must be a man who is identified in the company as a go-to person. Well, any problem that is cropping up in the organization, you always have somebody who you always refer to that problem, because you know he is going to somehow find a solution to that, because he always thinks out of box. He is a very, very creative, innovative person. That is the kind of image that all of you have to build for yourself, so that you kind of become indispensable for the organization. And that's the gateway and the roadway to success for you in your professional career. In order to achieve a goal, you must have confidence coupled with conviction. You must have the conviction, I can do it. In order to have success, you must have determination coupled with self-esteem. Please remember, always have this attitude in your mind that your self-esteem is greater than the judgment by others. Someone may think not so high of you. Someone may think not so good about you. Don't bother. Your self-esteem is greater than the judgment of others. You got to respect yourself. Respecting others, of course, is important. It's a reciprocal thing. You respect others, others respect you. But what is equally and perhaps more important is to respect yourself. When you start respecting yourself, when you build up your esteem to such a level that you're not bothered by the judgment of others, I think that's the point when you would have started your journey onto turning your attitude into real action. How do you do that? Let's look at some of the Guru Mantras. How to build employability skills, how to have a positive attitude, how to have a winning attitude, how to have a behavior which is in sync with the expectations of the industry. I'm going to share with you a few Guru Mantras, which have culled out by way of over 40 years of my experience that I've spent, the time that I've spent in industry. Sukhi Ram versus Dukhi Ram. Whether you are a happy person or a miserable person, it all depends upon you. It doesn't depend upon the others, doesn't depend upon the circumstances. No. Circumstances can be good or bad. Circumstances can be favorable, unfavorable. But whether you are happy, whether you are miserable, your choice, it's up to you. Every day morning when you get up, you got to decide for yourself whether I want to live the day through today in a happy mood or in a miserable mood. Nobody can make or mar your day. It's all you. You got to decide how well you're going to live your day by your attitude, by your behavior, by your emotions. You have a choice to make in this world, whether you want to be happy or miserable. KFP versus BFP. How does it matter versus it matters a lot? If some of you understand Hindi, क्या फर्क पड़ता है versus बहुत फर्क पड़ता है. क्या फर्क पड़ता है? How does it matter? बहुत फर्क पड़ता है. It matters a lot. You must have the ability to distinguish many things that happen in your organizational life and must have the ability to distinguish between things which don't really matter and things which really matter. Just to give you a real life example, suppose one of your customer is not happy the way you have handled a particular deal and he breaks the relationship with your company. Well, you are handling 150 customers total. One customer somehow was not satisfied with your dealing and he cut away his relationship with the company and you. Should it bother you? Should it not bother you? This should bother you, even if one customer, but then the message spreads in the market by word of mouth. Why should even one customer be unsatisfied with your behavior, your attitude? Why should company lose even one customer? It matters a lot. But there are some events which happen in the company which should not really bother you much because, well, it happens. Your boss did not behave the way you expected him one fine good morning. You did a good job, but were not appreciated by the boss. Well, these are things which happen in the companies. Don't bother too much about that. How does it matter? Well, you keep on doing your best. Sometimes you will get appreciation. Sometimes you may not get appreciation. How does it matter? It should not bother you too much. You must therefore have and develop the ability to be able to distinguish between what bothers you, what matters, and what does not matter. To any situation, don't react because reaction is instantaneous without thinking. You must develop the ability to respond. When you respond, you must first think, look at the problem, look at the situation, Think of a situation, think of a solution, and then you respond. So there is a clear distinction between reaction and response. Your attitude should be of responding, not reacting. That will be a better way of handling most of the difficult situations in life as well as the company. Learn to love what you do for living. If you enjoy what you do, you will not feel the pressure. Pressure is felt in the workplace or the job only when you got to be doing and slogging with something which you don't like to do. So learn to love whatever you are doing for making a living or while working in a company. Team spirit, or you must be a team player. You must have the ability of getting along well with the people, because most of the work in the companies today is done by forming various groups, by forming various task forces, and therefore you must have the ability to be a good team player. Having individual brilliance is not going to cut much of an ice, is not going to really help you do your job in an effective manner. You must at the same time develop ability of getting along well with people. You must build up your team spirit and team functioning abilities. Don't work hard. You actually should work smarter. Some people say, I work so hard every day, 8 hours, don't pick up my head. All the time I'm doing work in the office, but it's not being recognized by my boss, not getting good increments, not getting promotion, not growing in the company. Well, I think you are not focusing on the right aspect. You should actually look at smarter ways of working rather than working very, very hard. You might have noticed that within the company there is another subordinate or a peer of yours who is probably working less hard, but is able to deliver more value because he is working smarter. Don't work hard. You got to work smarter. Another way of saying don't react, you should respond is if you are angry, don't speak immediately, don't react. Count 10, give a pause, think through, take your time, then speak up. If you are very, very angry, take more time, think through the problem, find a solution, then respond. When angry, count 10 before you speak. If very angry, count 100 before you speak. You must maintain a work-life balance. There are people who simply slog through their jobs, working in the companies. They have no time for themselves, no time for their families, no time for socializing, no time for pursuing their other hobbies. I don't think that's the right attitude to have as a professional in your career. You must maintain a work-life balance. That's very important. That means you must have adequate time for just about everything in this life, for leisure, for your hobbies, for reading, for relaxing, for work, of course. You must have time and you must budget your time. You must schedule your time. You must have a kind of a plan whereby you are able to do everything what you require to do or what you want to do in this life by having an effective scheduling of everything in your life based on the work-life balance. You must be flexible, adaptable. You should be able to change as per the requirements. Look the way all of us have changed because of the COVID impact in the last 6, 7, 8 months. Many of us, well, I'm being very frank, I had not used Microsoft Meetings or Zoom or any other of such video conferencing tool which is available today. But over the period of last 7 months, there's been a great learning. I've been conducting webinar sessions, been conducting meetings through all these tools which are available to you. You must be prepared to change yourself, be flexible, be adaptable. That's the requirement of the dynamic world in which we are living today. Remember again, it's a VUCA world. which is highly vulnerable, highly uncertain, highly complex and highly ambiguous and changing so fast that it is like kind of shifting sands on the seashore. Sharpen the saw. You have to continuously keep upgrading your skills. It's not that you just build a repository of your skills just to land a job, but it's actually an everyday requirement that you got to continuously keep upgrading your skills and knowledge because the world is changing so fast. If you don't do that, you'll be left behind in the competition and you will probably not be able to achieve your life targets or your life objectives. Sharpen the saw. There was a woodcutter and he was without job for a number of days. Finally, he got a job of cutting logs of woods and he was agreed to be paid on a per log cut basis, whatever, say 20 rupees for each log they had to cut on a particular day, you will get paid on that basis. Since he was out of job for a number of days and he was desperately looking for making some money with a view to meeting two ends meet in his family, he worked very, very hard on that particular day. End of the day, when the logs were counted, it was found that he had cut 13 logs on that day. So the employer paid him 260 rupees and said, come back tomorrow, I have some more work for you to do. He went back home, told his wife, I worked very, very hard, but somehow I could log only 13. I could cut only 13 logs. I think I could have done better. I think I could have done more. His wife said, I know for sure you are a very, very hard worker, but don't worry. Try tomorrow. I'm sure you're going to do better job the next day. Next day, he worked even harder. But end of the day, when the logs were counted, it was found that he could do only 12 logs today. So he got 240 rupees. He was very, very sad. He again came back home, talked to his wife, said, I don't know what is the matter. I tried even harder today, but my total log cut tally has fallen. I don't know what happened, but I just managed to do only 12 logs today. His wife said, don't worry. Tomorrow, I'm sure you're going to do better. Third day, he could cut only 10 logs. He was desperate. What's wrong? I'm trying harder and harder day by day, but what's wrong? Why my tally of cut logs is going down? His wife advised, we are poor people, we are illiterate people, we may not be able to find a solution. I suggest you talk to your employer tomorrow morning. Probably he will be able to guide you how to work more effectively so that you can get more results, you can get better results. For sure, he did talk to his employer the next day and asked him, sir, I've been trying harder and harder, but my number of logs cut are going down and down. I'm not able to fathom, I'm not able to find out what's wrong where. His employer asked him a question. When did you last sharpen your saw? When did you last sharpen your saw? He said, sir, where is the time to sharpen the saw? Well, I've been busy cutting the logs. If I start sharpening my saw, I'll waste 15 minutes. Where is the time? I want to cut more and more logs. Employer said, that's where you are making the mistake. Your saw is getting blunt and blunt. You should sharpen it from time to time. Then only you'll be able to achieve better results. Upgrading your skills, upgrading your knowledge, upgrading your attitude from time to time is the need of the hour. And this practice you must follow throughout your life. Honesty, ethics, value system, very important. Actually, there can be no compromise on that front. There has to be honesty through and through. And it should not only be only on the face, it has to actually become part of your DNA. You should believe from the core of your heart, I got to be honest. I got to have a value system. I got to be ethical. And this must reflect and ooze out from whatever you do from your overall personality. You must show respect even to your little customer. You know, customers can be both external and internal. There are people with who you work within the company. You have to do some work for them. They do certain work for you. They are also your customers. They are internal customers. You must always maintain a very, very respectful attitude towards your customers. You must show respect for your customers. That's the call that I'm making by this particular point. You got to be creative. You got to start thinking out of the box. Seven Thinking Hats, that book, I'm sure some of you at least would have read that book. Very important. You have to have and develop the ability to be able to connect the dots. You must have the ability of thinking out of the box. If you draw a square on a paper with a pen and someone asks you to divide the square into two parts, what most of us would do is draw a line either vertically or horizontally right through the center. Yes, because we have been asked to divide the square in two parts. I'm not saying two equal parts. I only said two parts. But someone comes with some kind of a creativity and he draws a line diagonally from anywhere inside that square. Well, he has accepted the command. He has divided the square into two parts because the requirement was never to divide the square into two equal parts. The person only asked you to divide the square into two parts. That's where creativity and out of the box thinking plays a very critical role in an individual's performance within the organization. Failure is another opportunity to begin more intelligently again. Failures are stepping stones to success. These should not be taken as kind of hurdles. These should not really bother you. They are actually providing you guidance for how to succeed in future. But success cannot be achieved instantly just as a coffee. Instant coffee? Yes. Instant success? No. Success doesn't happen instantly. Takes time, takes a lot of efforts, takes a lot of waiting, takes a lot of belief attitude, and then ultimately you are able to achieve success in whatever you do in your life. So two-word success story is that work works. If you work dedicatingly, if you work with the right attitude, if you work with the right behavior, right kind of knowledge and skill, its results are bound to be reflected in your progress and your success. The results may not be immediate, may not be reflective immediately, but you're bound to get benefit of those results at least in future. So the point is, you got to be making efforts all the time. Lage raho, lage raho, lage raho, lagan se. You got to keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, dedicatingly. No one is perfect. Don't aim for perfection. 7 by 10 is good enough. 8 by 10 is still better. But more than this kind of a score, what you got to be building up and looking for in your personality is the go-getter personality and a winner personality. Some people say, well, he has achieved high position in industry. He has been very successful in his career. Well, it's all a matter of destiny. I could not achieve that much. I could not score so good marks. It's all a matter of destiny. I don't disbelieve destiny, but destiny is perhaps not everything. Destiny is not a matter of chance. It's a matter of choice. The weakness of our heart does not allow us to open up. Otherwise, which is the drop that cannot be an ocean? Every drop can become an ocean. It's all up to us how well we seek that, how well we prepare ourselves to get that drop converted into an ocean. How big a heart do we have? How strong a heart do we have? It all depends upon that. Today is the time, and now is the time. Never say never in whatever task is given to you, whatever job you got to be doing. So, how to improve your employability skills? First, you must be aware. That means you must carry out some kind of a SWOT analysis, just as you would have done SWOT of many companies as part of your educational curriculum. Try and do a SWOT of yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Don't hide. Be very, very frank about yourself. Once you have listed out your strengths and weaknesses, try to gainfully leverage your strengths and try to overcome your weaknesses slowly. Once you become aware, only then probably you can take effective steps to overcome your weaknesses. If you don't know what is your weakness, it will remain as your weakness forever because you're not going to work towards that. You don't really know what is that. This is like Johari's window. You would have studied in organizational behavior. There is a concept of Johari's window. You must practice. You must practice to develop your employability skills. Then from time to time, you should get feedback from your teachers, from your friends, from your parents. Am I improving? I'm making efforts. Are these efforts good enough? Are they helping me improve in whatever area I'm trying to improve my personality or not? Reflect back after getting the feedback. Refine your process of practice. And this is a continuous cycle. Awareness, practice, feedback, reflection, refine, which will ultimately help you achieve your objectives of improving your employability skills. But believe me, just as for doing anything and everything in the organization, you need to first have a plan. Similarly, even for personal development, even for developing employability skills, you've got to have a plan. Reflection is the key part of the learning process. Reflect back, find out what situations, how did you behave? Could you have behaved differently? Could you have done a particular task in a different manner? Would that have been a more effective way of doing your job? Reflect back. You will be unable to develop your employability skills if you are unaware about your current skill sets. So SWOT is a must. You must carry out a SWOT so that you at least become aware about your current skill sets. And then whatever little I've been able to tell you in today's session, what are the industry expectations, and then how to bridge the gap, how to walk the gap, how to be able to achieve the desired level of employability skills to land and sustain a good job. So a personal development plan is a structured way to think about the employability skills that you need to develop further. And it's a means and an architecture, an instrument by which such development can be achieved, and the progress can also be measured going forward. We are very conscious about, yes, please.
So if I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Sure.
so we will have a questionnaire session after this, so like
Okay, I'm
students have
just
already
winding up in
started
2
posting.
minutes. I'm just winding up in
Okay,
2 minutes, and then
sure,
I'll
sir.
spare about 10 minutes for the question answer session.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
I'm just winding up in 2 minutes. Yeah.
Sure,
Last
sir.
3 slides. Sure. Thank you. So personal branding, as we are all concerned and conscious about the brands, we always like to go for branded products. Why? A branded product carries a premium price, but at the same time, it also reflects credibility of the product. It reflects resilience of the product. it reflects quality of the product, it reflects its image that the customers carry in their minds. Similarly, somewhere in the beginning of my presentation, I made a statement. People who are successful today are people who are able to sell their personalities effectively. And in order to be able to sell your personality, you got to create a brand for yourself. How do you market yourself is the ultimate challenge. That's what makes the difference between a successful person and probably not so successful a person. For building up a personal brand, you got to define yourself in a unique manner so that anyone and everyone that you meet or you deal with, he must carry a memorable impression. Well, the person I met the other day, he was a great communicator. He had a great personality. He had a very, very dynamic attitude. You must be able to create some kind of an impression in the mind of the other person. And that will be shaped by how you present yourself publicly, both offline and offline, online. How you dress, how you talk, how you walk, how you eat, how you communicate, how you work. Very, very small things. We don't even look at them in a careful manner, but these are the things which ultimately are elements of your personality. And these things, how you present them, will ultimately be very, very rewarding in creating a personal brand for yourself. Your personal brand is nothing but the image that you want others to see. Another important skill that you must try and develop is the networking skills. It's a time where networking has become a very, very essential thing. You go to meetings, you go to meet friends, you go to seminars, go to conferences, network very, very extensively. You never know who might be able to help you at what point of time. Networking skills are very important. And for that also, you need to have a plan. You must decide what is your aim. You must also be able to identify and segregate who are the people who you would like to network with. What are the backgrounds and companies they will come from? How can I help these people? See, before asking for any kind of favor, be prepared to offer your help to the other guy. That's the way of building a great network and a sustainable network. How can I help these people? How can I connect with them? And then you must also have kind of a professional pitch. Any person you meet in a seminar conference, you will probably be able to meet him only for half a minute, maybe 1 minute, because there are 100 people. Everyone is looking for networking with other people. Nobody is going to give you more time than that. Within those 30 seconds or even less than that, you got to build your professional pitch, which is technically called an elevator pitch. You got to say who you are. You want to say, you should be able to say, what can you offer? What can you deliver? What is your expectation? The good idea would be to probably write down kind of an elevator pitch for yourself. Don't shy. Write it down in your copy, write it down in a Word document, go through it time and again and say, are you able to communicate about yourself to a stranger within a period of about 20 seconds, 30 seconds or not? Is that comprehensive or not? That would be a great idea to look at. The world is so challenging and competitive. You have to either shape up or shape out. You'll either be able to stand up to the competition, be a successful person, or probably you will not be able to be enough competitive and probably be shunted out of the corporate. So friends, believe in yourself, have a winning attitude, have a positive attitude, say to yourself, respect yourself, tell yourself, I'm the winner, I can, I shall, I will win. Thank you so very much. That's where I close my formal presentation. I shall be pleased to answer and respond to some of the questions over the next 10 minutes.
Sir, I really lack words. I really lack words to express my gratitude and the wide range of topics or wide range of things that you have covered. Just incredible. Students, may I
Thank
request
you
all
so
of
much,
you for
ma'am.
a round of applause? For a round of applause for
Thank
sir.
you
May
so
I request
much.
all of you
Thank you so
kindly?
much, all of you. My
Students,
pleasure of having been invited.
students,
I could give lot
kindly.
many other real life examples, but time being the constraint, I tried to cover the maximum within the shortest possible time. Otherwise, having spent about over 40 years in industry, I could have given many other live examples of each one of the points that I discussed. Some other time, probably next session, I could build on this topic and take you still into deeper heights.
So personally, at a personal level, I must say that I'm going to pursue your suggestions from time now, because the
Thank you so
things that you have
much.
covered
Thank
up,
you.
it really matches. It matches my interest. I'm going to pursue for your suggestions from now and on.
Very
Well,
good. Thank
without taking much of your time, students, sir, there is already some questions in the chat
you. That's
box.
okay. Yeah, please tell me.
I'll start with them.
Yeah.
Tanwani, sorry. Before that, I think there is one question by Sonak. Sonak Basu. He says, my question is, during this time of pandemic and uncertainty of business environment, how can business engage and keep their potential customers active, happy, and interested about new product launches?
Sure. As I told you, the COVID scenario has impacted all of us very significantly the world over. And it has also led us to learn new things which we were not adept at earlier. I gave my own personal example of having never ever used Zoom or Microsoft Teams or these kind of platforms for having an interactive webinar or a session earlier, which I'm very easily using these days. There's a great learning that's happening. Similarly, the companies also have changed their mode of connecting with the customers. They have gone virtual in all modes. They are using social media very effectively for new product launches as well as keeping the connect built up with the customer. Even the results of research show that things which are happening in the marketplace, the market, all industries virtually are back to the normal pre-COVID levels. They had been devastatingly impacted by COVID during the period of April, May, June, July. But after that, most of the businesses are coming back to the normal because they have adapted themselves to the new way of doing business, new way of keeping connect with the customers through the leveraging of information technology, social platforms, and the virtual platforms. Even yesterday on the Economic Times, I was reading an article in the newspaper. The Procter Gamble, Dabur, any company that you talk about, they were talking about building up engagements based upon artificial learning, data analytics, and also using IT tools with a view to having a better connect with the customers. The companies have adapted so very well, and going forward, that's going to be the way in which the companies will be able to maintain effective contact with the customers all through.
Thank you, sir. Uh, Tanwani from MBA first year, she has a question that due to the pandemic, our future work environment will be affected. So how can we manage it? Work from home will be better or work from office?
Actually, at the individual level, you will not have the choice. It will all depend upon the employer. There are some companies which are offering one work from home. There are some companies which are compelling people, at least a certain proportion of the staff, to come to office on an alternate day or a flexible timing kind of thing. So it's not actually your choice whether you would like to work from home or work at the workplace. But whatever option is given to you, you have to decide and you have to make the best out of that, and you got to give the best of the results to your employer with a view to staying put in the job and also be able to progress as per your expected pace.
Thank you, sir. The question is from MBA first year student Prantik Sharkar. He says, my question is that in order to save expenses, organizations are adopting machine learning techniques, artificial intelligence softwares, business intelligence, automation process, which are reducing hiring factor within the organization. So how does one increase the employability in such organizations?
It's a very old question where people were saying about 30 years back, even 40 years back also, that with the advent of computers, the employment is going to become a big challenge. But look at the way actually things have fanned out with more deployment of computers, more deployment of information technology, machine learning, AI. In fact, it's opening up new vistas of employment opportunities for many people. So it's an old debate, but the facts and the research has shown that this is a myth kind of thing. With increased use of all these information technology tools, actually people are going to be hired more jobs are going to get created, but different kinds of jobs. You can't really expect the nature of jobs to be remaining the same. More people are going to be hired, but they're going to be hired in different kinds of jobs.
Thank you, sir. Shushmeet from MBA, he has a question. Does different organizations have different sets of work value, or is it the same after all in all organizations?
All organizations have a unique organizational culture. At the broad level, probably I can tell you a European company, a US company, an Indian company, all three companies will have a different work culture. But then this is very simple to understand because I'm dividing in terms of geographical distribution. But even two European companies, comparatively speaking, will have a different organization culture. Even two or four Indian companies, inter se, will also have a different organizational culture. So each organization will have a unique organizational culture. How best you are able to fit into that, how well you are able to adapt to that is ultimately going to be the success factor determining your career progression in that company.
Thank you, sir. Debanjana Datta from MBA first year. She says, I would like to know that since work from home is an integral part of the new normal, where informal communication is missing to a great extent, so how this would affect the employee satisfaction in the corporate sector?
There are many companies I'm aware of. I've also been part of those events which are organizing informal meets just as you are doing work from home. They are organizing company level, company organized informal meets, parties, get togethers, live shows on virtual platforms. So we are trying to find out solutions to the emerging situation where nobody could have imagined that we're going to land up in this kind of a situation a few months back. But now that this has become a reality, companies are slowly trying to find out solution to connect informally with people. Even when they are working from home, they are trying to come up with new models whereby they are trying to interact with people on a virtual platform.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Abhishek Mishra, second year student of MBA. Sir, what would be your advice to the final year MBA candidates who are now about to start their career in corporate?
Well, my advice to you would be kindly carefully go through these 28, 30 odd slides that I've shown and discussed with you. Look at, first carry out a SWOT of yourself. I think that should be doing even tonight or maybe tomorrow, but it will not happen in a few hours. It might take you a few days to complete that. Do a very, very honest and frank SWOT. Identify, list down, pen down, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses? One paper. Then second paper, look at the industry expectations which I've shared it with you. And then try to establish kind of a linkage. Do you have what the industry requires today or not? If not, then strive to build up those capacities, build up that knowledge, build up that skill. If you are not sure how to go about it, talk to your parents, talk to your faculty, talk to your friends, but slowly and slowly, at least start making efforts towards becoming employable in the marketplace.
Thank you, sir. We'll take one more question, sir, if you allow us.
Sure.
It is Partha Protein, and he has a question. He's again from MBA first year, and he has a question: how one should adopt to a position in an organization if he or she doesn't find his desired role in first stage?
Well, if you find yourself in a wrong place, I mean, a square peg in a round hole kind of thing, I think it may be a tough choice or a tough call because maybe with great difficulty you would have landed into that particular job, but then you find yourself in a wrong position or wrong place. I think there's no point cribbing about that for rest of your few months, at least a few years, it will be better to quit the job and look out for some better option. That's my straight answer to this.
Well, sir, your
There can be no better option in that case. I mean, there's no point keep cribbing all the time. That will also impact your health, your work performance. Everything will be impacted. So why get into all that? I mean, there are many other options available in the marketplace. It may take you a few weeks, a few months to get or find a good fit for yourself, but it's worth giving it a try.
so I am running short of words like how to
Thank
express.
you so
It
very
was
much, ma'am. It's been my
simply
pleasure to
wonderful.
have interacted with you and given me an opportunity of interacting with the students. Any other area where I can contribute for your institution for the students, just let me know. I'm a visiting faculty at many of these schools. These days I'm conducting classes online and I'll share my subject areas. I teach finance, I teach corporate governance, I teach corporate laws, anything of that sort. And
Surely,
I
sir.
teach how to prepare for the interviews. I have individual specialized sessions for that, how to write your CV, how to face the group interviews. I have special modules on those also. Anytime if I can be of any help, it'll be my pleasure.
Definitely, sir. In fact, we will all be benefited from this experiences
Thank
that
you.
you have
Thank you
gathered
so
for
much.
such a long years.
Thank you so much.
So I'll convey the greetings and wishes from Dr. Ramakanta Patra, the principal,
Sure.
who
Sure.
could not
Thank you
be
so much.
present
That's all
because
right.
he was
That's all
he
right.
had actually, sir, he has recently been released from hospital because he was affected of COVID positive.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
he could not be present.
Sure.
So on behalf of BIMS, all the faculty and staff, we thank you. And so really it was a pleasure to listen to
Thank you
you. It
so
was a
much.
wonderful session.
Thank
We
you,
look
great.
forward, we look forward to further sessions in future.
Sure, ma'am.
And
Thank you so much. Thank you.
before
Namaskar.
we before we close up, may I request Abhishek to play the national anthem
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
and requesting everyone to kindly stand in your places. All the
Thank you, ma'am.
students, we will get in touch with you. Thank you
Sure, ma'am.
everyone for participating. So you're again welcome to our institute. So definitely we will like to meet you again. Thank you. Thank you, students.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you so much,
Thank
ma'am.
you, ma'am.
Thank you.